I'm John Robbins, co-founder of the Food Revolution Network and co-host of the Food Revolution Summit. In this video, I'm going to talk about why we need a food revolution, and I'm going to tell you what gives me so much hope. Today, we know more about food and health than ever. We have the most advanced medical system in history, and yet, we have higher rates of obesity and diabetes and chronic illness than any other population that has ever lived on this planet. How is this possible? We've got about 16 million acres in the United States now growing all of our fruits and vegetables. But we have got more than 10 times that amount of farmland. We've got 200 million heavily subsidized acres growing genetically engineered corn and soy. These genetically engineered crops, corn and soy, require massive uses of herbicides. In fact, that is exactly what they have been genetically engineered to do, what they have been designed for, to tolerate being sprayed with massive amounts of herbicides. Most of this genetically engineered corn and soy is being used as livestock feed in our factory farms, to make ethanol for our cars, and turned into the unhealthy ingredients that go into our ultra-processed foods, like high fructose corn syrup. We need a food revolution because more than half of the calories in the American diet today come from ultra-processed foods. Do you see the irony? In the United States, we've got a Department of Agriculture that is encouraging us all to eat more fruits and vegetables, but that is spending hundreds of billions of dollars subsidizing production of genetically engineered corn and soy, which ultimately brings down the price of factory-farmed animal products and highly processed foods. What sense does it make for us, as taxpayers, to be heavily subsidizing crops that every health authority is telling us we should be eating less of? What sense does it make for us to be doing almost nothing to subsidize the fruits and vegetables we're supposed to be eating more of? If there is a responsibility to spend the public's money in a way that's consistent with the public's health, should not taxpayers be subsidizing the foods that are better for us? We need a food revolution because we're supporting a system that enriches a few corporations at the expense of our health and at the expense of farmers, rural communities, and taxpayers. We need a food revolution because whenever we eat, we make a choice. Whenever we choose a food, we either improve the world or we make it less. We either sustain the conditions that are conducive to life or we worsen them and harm them. We need a food revolution because it is an act of courage and an act of love to prepare healthy food for ourselves and for others and to speak out and educate people. We need a food revolution for so many reasons. We need a food revolution because every year in the United States, we throw away 96 billion pounds of food, which means we're feeding our landfills as much as we're feeding our people. Why is all this food being thrown away and not being given to those who need it? Why are we wasting so much food and not making sure that every one of us has enough healthy food to eat? We need a food revolution because we're feeding our landfills instead of our people. We need a food revolution because in the United States, we're spending now 18% of our entire gross domestic product on what we call healthcare. But as you know, it really shouldn't be called healthcare at all because what it is disease management. Most of today's doctors are largely untrained in nutrition. Their medical training is mostly focused on managing disease symptoms with drugs and surgery. Meanwhile, our diets are getting worse and worse, and our population is getting sicker and sicker. In the last 65 years, medical spending as a share of GDP has nearly quadrupled. We need a food revolution because our food is making us fat and sick and bankrupting us. We need a food revolution because Western food is taking over the world. Traditional cultural cuisines are enriched and even defined by their use of herbs and spices. Have you ever enjoyed Indian food with its curries, its turmeric, cardamom, and coriander? Or Mexican food with its chilies, cumin, garlic, and oregano? Have you ever appreciated Italian food with its parsley, sage, basil, and thyme? or French food with its marjoram, tarragon, and savory. In every traditional culture's cuisine, herbs and spices not only add fascination and intrigue to the flavors of foods, they also define the culture, and they have considerable health benefits. But with industrial and processed food, with what has come to be known worldwide as American food, instead of herbs and spices to add culinary interest, our mega food companies have added huge amounts of sugar and fat and salt, as well as chemical flavorings and colorings and preservatives. These overpower our senses, and they mask the lack of flavor of industrialized food. Rather than supporting health, they lead to heart disease, obesity, diabetes, and all the other Western diseases that plague us today and that we are exporting worldwide along with our foods. We need a food revolution because the richness of our relationship to food has been hijacked by the corporate manipulation of our taste buds. People say, "I want to eat what I like. That's my right. That's my freedom." True. But what if what people like has been determined by the food industry? What if mega food corporations have sought control over our taste buds? And what if, to a remarkable extent, they've achieved that control? Do you think people naturally like what will make them sick and fat? People want to feel healthy and vibrant, but the industrialized food supply has added so much salt, so much sugar, and so much fat to the foods they sell us that they've gotten most of us hooked. The result is that many of us today feel deprived if we aren't eating foods that undermine our health. We need a food revolution so we can take back our taste buds, so we can take back our mouths and our tongues. We need a food revolution so we can experience eating not as an exercise in addiction and not as a form of obeisance to the food industry. We need a food revolution so we can experience eating as a way of making love with life, a way of being intimate with the world, a way of celebrating what truly sustains us, a way of affirming the values, the pleasures, and the joys we hold most dear. If we're going to, together, make the changes that are needed in our lifetime, we need to know the facts, and we need to put them into action. That's why I'm so grateful and excited that you've chosen to join in the Food Revolution Summit, because we can make a change, and because what we do, what you do, matters. At the beginning of this video, I promised I would tell you why I think we need a food revolution. I also promised that I would tell you what gives me hope. It gives me hope that the norms of a toxic food culture are fast losing their appeal, and people are increasingly hungry for change. We've seen in the last 15 years a fourfold increase in sales of organic foods. We now have polls in the United States showing that more than 90% of the American public thinks that animals raised for food on farms deserved to be free from cruelty, and that the number of people who want to ban junk food marketing that targets kids has quadrupled in the last 8 years. We've got a long way to go, but we're seeing progress in many ways. It gives me hope that earlier this year, the Campbell Soup Company announced that it would voluntarily label all of its products that contain GMOs, and there would be no price increase. It gives me hope that non-GMO certified foods have gone from being non-existent to a $10 billion industry in the last 5 years, and that the number of farmers markets and community-supported agricultural programs have increased tenfold in the last 15 years. It gives me hope that there is a food movement growing and building. It's building in political power, and it's building in economic power. It's showing up often in everyday, very simple choices, where people shop and what they choose to buy when they shop, and what they choose to feed their families. It is a whole lot of little drops in the bucket, but when you add it up, it can actually become more than a bucket. It can start to become the tide of history turning. That's why what really gives me hope is you, and the millions of people like you who care enough to open their eyes and see what's really happening. What gives me hope is everyone who's getting informed and standing up for a healthier food future. When you do, you are literally standing for the hope of our world.